who is host of the White House Brief on iHeartRadio. He's Skyping to us from New Hampshire. And Marjorie Clifton is principal of Clifton Consulting and senior voter advocate. Thank you both for being with us.
Good to be here.
Paul, were you able to listen to that conversation between the governor and myself?
Yes, absolutely.
How do you think it's going in South Carolina? Is it going to be down to the wire, a very close race?
No, I think this is Romney all the way. I mean, honestly, despite what the governor was saying, and I think his analysis is right. It's hard to believe that you have Tea Party activists and other social conservatives jumping on with Mitt Romney, but that's just the reality of it. There are two big issues on the table. There's holding on to core values and conservatism, but then there's also beating Barack Obama. And people look at electability, and Mitt Romney, quite frankly, has made the case that he is the most electable of this crowd.
Marjorie, you watched the debate, I know. What did you think of Newt Gingrich?
Well, I thought the debate was a bunch of boys at the poker table, throwing punches at one another. I think Newt Gingrich had some great zingers in there, but I didn't go away thinking he was the clear winner. I don't know that the points that he made will resonate with the rest of the American people. And while South Carolina is where our eyes are now, it's not the entire debate, not the entire nomination process. So, I think that he definitely is confident in his self, but I think it's a little unfair for him to be asking the others to step aside and to be criticizing them for a lot of things that he does himself.
Paul, I was mentioning to the governor the Fox News poll that is just out. There is another part of it I want to ask you about. 80% of the voters who were measured by this Fox poll say that electability is very important, and by a wide margin, Mitt Romney is seen as having the best chance of defeating President Obama. Is that in some ways what has been driving Romney's success so far? We care less about ideology and a whole lot more about beating the president.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a whole lot more, but I would say, as I just mentioned, it's broken down between two issues. It's about core conservatism, and you see the field has moved to the right from 2008 and even from past years before that, but the reality is people are looking for somebody who can beat Barack Obama and try to start to undo the destruction he's brought on the country. So basically, what we need to do is find somebody, a nominee who's going to stand up for those core values. And Mitt Romney, as much as people have concerns about that, they feel that anything will be better than Barack Obama. And Mitt Romney right now, at the very least, has the money, has the network, has the people on the ground to get that done.
All right. I want to play several sound bites here. And let's begin with Sarah Palin, who appeared on Fox News. And here's what she said were she to be voting in South Carolina. Take a listen.
If I had to vote in South Carolina, in order to keep this thing going, I'd vote for Newt, and I would want this to continue, more debates, more vetting of candidates, because we know the mistake made in our country 4 years ago was having a candidate that was not vetted to the degree that he should have been. I want to see this thing continue because iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel.
Marjorie, it's not clearly an endorsement, and it's sort of like, well, I want the contest to keep going, so for that reason I'll vote for Gingrich just so it'll go on and on and on. What do you make of that? By the way, does anybody, do you think, in terms of voters in South Carolina, do they pay attention to Sarah Palin? Do they care what she thinks?
Does anyone pay attention to Sarah Palin or care what she thinks? I don't know, but I will say that I wasn't quite clear from the clip who she was talking about having been properly vetted 4 years ago, whether it was her or Barack Obama, but anyway, so that was a little vague. But
yeah,
I would say if she...
I must say, that got a few giggles.
Yeah, anyway, but she provides a lot of entertainment, so I like her to stay on the scene, But I would say that if she thinks that Gingrich is the one everyone should be voting for, I don't understand why she doesn't come out and endorse him herself. So that to me is a little bit odd, and I don't understand what she's trying to exactly keep it going for. I mean, I think South Carolina and the entire Republican field right now is going to come down to passion versus pragmatism. And while nobody seems entirely passionate about Mitt Romney, from a pragmatic standpoint, I think he is the clear winner.
All right, I want to play Mitt Romney now. And, this is when, after the debate, he was pressured, of course, during the debate to release your tax returns. And he hemmed and hawed and said, well, I might do that in April. here's what he said yesterday when confronted about what kind of taxes he actually paid. Listen.
What's the effective rate I've been paying? Well, it's probably closer to the 15% rate than anything, because my last 10 years, my income comes overwhelmingly from investments.
By the way, that's our question of the day, your reaction to that. So email us at our website. But, Paul, do you get the sense that, and he went on to say that, look, I didn't make much money, in terms of speaking fees last year, and it, turns out he made $374,000. Is he out of touch?
Mitt Romney, it's no breaking news alert that Mitt Romney's a rich guy. But the reality is, is any presidential candidate, and I'm not trying to waffle here, but is any presidential candidate really in touch with reality? These are guys who are surrounded by people who constantly tell them how great they are. They see their name all over TV. So I don't care if you're the poorest of these candidates or the richest, they're not really normal folks. And to say Barack Obama's a normal guy, well, that's far from the truth as well, in terms of knowing people on the street, knowing what people are going through. So, quite frankly, that Romney's worth quite a bit of money, and that he's worked hard and he's made a lot of money in his life. I think it's something the Republican Party, and certainly Republicans in this race, should be applauding and congratulating and fighting him on other things.
Yeah. Paul, stand by for just a moment. I don't mean to try to defend Mitt Romney. I think what he was trying to say is, look, most of my income came from capital gains, and
yes,
it was comparatively small to the speaking fees. I don't think he was poo-pooing, $374,000, which of course is a lot of money. I remember in Iowa, I think the average income there is about $40,000. Let me play one more clip, Marjorie, and get your reaction to it. This is Newt Gingrich as he essentially attacks Romney's statement that we just heard.
I didn't realize until today that Governor Romney paid about 15%, so we're now calling my 15% flat tax the Mitt Romney flat tax. And our principle is, why shouldn't you be allowed to pay the same percentage he does?
All right, Marjorie, that was very clever, you have to admit.
Well, I think that he's making a play of something that he knows that he could go under the same scrutiny as Mitt Romney. And honestly, I don't think this entire debate is about what tax rates should be. I think that's a separate argument that's going to be raised, and it'll be an opportunity for Democrats as well about how much do we tax the wealthy. But to be honest, for the past 40 years, Republican and Democratic candidates for president and presidents have been the uber wealthy. And so I don't think, as Steve just pointed out, I don't think this is a surprise. But I think what's bizarre is why Romney doesn't embrace who he is, and it's more focused on how can he be relatable to the American public. And the concern here is, does the guy appreciate the value of a dollar to an American public that is struggling so much with the economy right now and with jobs? And when you throw around $10,000 bets, and when $375,000 is not a lot of money, then it makes you seem very, very disconnected from what the average American is going through. Not whether you, and the fact that his own father was the first person or first candidate back in 1968 to start the tradition of releasing your tax and your income statements. And he released 12 years of his income statements. So why Romney is resisting on this is just a little bit bizarre.
Yeah. The White House, Jay Carney, White House spokesperson, the press secretary, brought that out yesterday, and you're absolutely correct. In my discussion with Mark Sanford, the former governor of South Carolina, he said, look, there's been a backlash against Newt Gingrich over this pro-Gingrich attack ad based on the Bain film, which is, according to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, riddled with inconsistencies, distortions, omissions, if not outright lies. And here's what Gingrich said further yesterday about, again, the stewardship of Mitt Romney at Bain Capital, and I'll quote, "The Bain model was to go in at very low price, borrow an immense amount of money, pay Bain a great deal of money, and leave." Paul, that is not even remotely close to what Bain did and what their practice has been.
No, and quite frankly, as an employee of Bain, technically, I work for Clear Channel Radio, which is owned by Bain Capital. I could tell you they do good things as well. They hire people as well. They don't just, ring out companies. There are certain businesses that do that in America, but the reality here is, and I tried to answer this before, in saying that, is Mitt Romney a regular guy? Who cares? He's a multimillionaire. He's worked hard. He's made a ton of money in his life, and that's something we should all be striving for. And I think that's a story that's worth telling. Why he's running away from it is starting to actually scare me, and when he should just embrace it, say, yeah, you know what, I did make a lot of money, and you know what, maybe sometimes people have to be fired, and sometimes, guess what, people at the Health and Human Services Department and Energy Department have to be fired. He should embrace this instead of running away from it, but and Newt Gingrich should just, shut the heck up talking about it. Newt has a lot of other ammo to go after Mitt Romney on. Why he's doing Bain Capital and capitalism is beyond me.
All right, I did receive, looking at the time clock, about 20 minutes ago, from the Romney campaign, their latest ad. It features Susan Molinari, former congresswoman, and she talks about how she, on camera, she talks about how she served with Newt Gingrich in Congress, and she describes his leadership style as, quote-unquote, chaos. A lot of the problems came from the sort of discipline he lacked in order to get the job done. I worry about the Republican Party's chances to defeat President Obama if Newt Gingrich is the nominee. And Marjorie, she's not the Lone Ranger. The people who have worked in Congress with Newt Gingrich when he served have said the following. Former Senator Jim Talent, not a reliable or trustworthy leader, referring to Newt Gingrich. Former Governor John Sununu says this of Gingrich, quote, not what you want in a commander-in-chief. Senator Tom Coburn says Gingrich, quote, lacks character traits. He's the last person I'd vote for president. And Susan Molinari's father was also congressman who worked with Gingrich. Representative Guy Molinari said, quote, God help us if Gingrich is elected president. Are those the kinds of comments that the Obama campaign would use, if not exploit, against Gingrich were he the nominee, Marjorie?
Well, I think that and a plethora of other Gingricisms. I mean, the man is famous for putting his foot in his mouth and the things that he said. I mean, he has the African-American community reeling right now from his statements about finding jobs for poor people and giving out jobs instead of food stamps, people asking for jobs instead of food stamps. So he, people seem to have a very short-term memory about what Newt Gingrich was like as Speaker of the House, and that was clear in the endorsements he was not getting early out when he came in the race. He had about 6 endorsements, 4 of which were from his home state, and the rest, I mean, he's trailing in that regard. And in Congress, I mean, they seem to remember what it was like, and there was that sort of bombastic flip-flopping as well, and these wild ideas that came out of his mouth all the time, some of which made sense, others that didn't, and it was that chaos that they're talking about. So I absolutely think that will be ammo against him, and those who have ruled with him do not feel that he would be a wise choice for our country.
I found one more. Peter King, Representative Peter King. How did I overlook this? Newt Gingrich was a disastrous speaker. Everything was self-centered. There was the lack of intellectual discipline. Look, you've got a lot of critics of Newt Gingrich, and you have a lot of fans. And you heard that on Monday night when he got a standing ovation during the debate. That was quite a moment for him. Whether it's going to move the needle in South Carolina, we will know on Saturday night. And we invite everybody to watch Fox News for our complete coverage on Saturday evening. Many thanks to Paul Westcott and Marjorie Clifton. Always great talking to you both. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, more politics. We're just 3 days away from the first in the South primary, South Carolina. Stick